30 seconds. Could be less. I'm gonna have a timer on. All right, ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
Recording in progress.
Good evening and welcome to our National Organize to Win call. I'm Amanda Nichols with Our Revolution, and tonight we're talking to U.S. Rep. Pramila Jayapal and elected leaders at different levels of government about how we build progressive power to advance the bold policy solutions we so desperately need to meet this moment we're in. The Supreme Court has gone rogue, issuing a flurry of decisions dismantling our rights, even making it so the EPA can't address climate emissions. These seem like dark times, but it's actually galvanizing our movement to build coalitions and turn our pain and frustration into action. That's why we're gathered here this evening to do the work, organizing our collective power against the far right and corporate forces that are taking apart our democracy. If you're ready to help fight back, we hope you'll get engaged with Our Revolution tonight, take part in some of our actions that we'll be linking in the chat. So if you're in Zoom, you can kick things off by telling us your name and where you're from, and tell us why you're tuning in tonight. I want to shout some people out from the chat. So also in the chat, you'll see the links to share this live stream out to your Facebook and Twitter. We want to help build this call and get as many folks tuning in as possible. So let's see who we have joining the Zoom right now. We have Liz Walsh and Tommy from Philly. Nice to see you. Claire, also a burb of Philly. James Bork from Oak Park, Illinois. And let's see. Joe Miller from Janesville, Wisconsin. Tony Easter from St. Louis, Missouri. Bruce J. in Coral Springs, Florida. He's a sustaining member. Thank you very much, Bruce. Love to see that. For folks who are calling in or watching live on social media, please transfer into the Zoom room with us. We're dropping the link to join Zoom in our social media streams right now. Go to ourrev.us/Zoom. Again, my name is Amanda Nichols, and you're tuning into our live national organizing call to build progressive power. Tonight, U.S. Rep. Pramila Jayapal, chair of the CPC, is here to discuss what Democrats can do right now to fight for abortion rights, such as expanding the court, and to lay out some of the priorities that Congress can and must deliver for the American people as soon as possible. We'll also be speaking with 3 candidates here to dig into their races and the importance of building state and county power for progressives. David Zuckerman, who has long served as an independent voice along with Bernie in Vermont, is running for lieutenant governor of the state. And we have 2 guests from Maryland, State House Delegate Sheila Ruth of District 44B and Montgomery County Executive Marc Elrich, both running for re-election. So the chat is very active. Keep telling us where you're tuning in from and why you're active in the progressive movement. Chris Reiger of West Tisbury. We've got Ken Roseman from Silver Spring, Maryland. Bill Davis from Dayton, Ohio. A lot of people. Louise from Harwich, Massachusetts. Diane from Cleveland. Hi, Diane. Okay, so everybody who's tuning in tonight, we need you to commit to signing up for a shift on our phone bank force. We have a ton of great candidates and issue campaigns that we're fighting for, getting our message out all around the country. Please click the link in the chat right now to sign up to call folks and mobilize them around our policies and our progressives. Help us kick out corporate politicians up and down the ballot and replace them with our partners. We've made more than 500,000 calls just in the past few months. So we're counting on our grassroots army to fight back against far-right authoritarian corporate bosses, the big money interests. Definitely sign up at the link and volunteer for a phone bank shift. You all know that we're fighting against the far right and corporate elites to elect allies, fight for progressive policies, ultimately change the face of politics in America. We hope you'll take a moment right now while the call is still building to become a member of our revolution. Just like some of the folks here in the chat are saying that they're sustaining members, we would love you to become one as well. Go to ourrev.us/2022 member. And if you're on the phones, press *3 and an operator will help you sign up very quickly before the call starts. We've got over 3,000 people listening in on the phones right now. Before we get started, we'd love for you to use this chance to hop over to Zoom so you can participate directly in tonight's organizing work. Go to ourrev.us/Zoom. Read a few more names off here. We've got David Legrand in Howard County, Maryland. We've got Mary Lee from Erie, PA. Hello, everybody. Dan from Massachusetts, Dan Gogwin. Evelyn Ulrich of Redwood City, California. Larry from Vermont. Good to see so many folks tuning in. Finally, before I hand it over, we're going to drop the link in Zoom for the latest edition of the Revolution Report, which is written by yours truly. So definitely click that link. Read it later tonight after the call while you're still amped up from organizing with all of our guests, and then share it around to activate more folks in the movement. Let's build coalition and get on the same page. That link is being dropped. And with that, let me bring in our host for the evening, our Revolution Campaigns and Communications Director, Paco Fabian. Paco.
Thank you, Amanda, and good evening, everybody, to the folks in Zoom, to the over 2,000 folks that are listening through our tele-town hall service, to folks in social media land. Welcome to our live Monday night Organized to Win call. As Amanda said, my name is Paco Fabian. I'm the Campaigns and Communications Director here at Our Revolution, and I'll be your host this evening. And as you all know, we're living through some pretty challenging times right now. The far-right Supreme Court is dismantling our rights. We're witnessing the horrors of gun violence and police brutality all over the country. And so many of us are struggling to pay for housing, for food, for healthcare, all while, climate chaos is accelerating and threatening everywhere, right? Mountains, coastlines, et cetera. And sadly, the Democrats hold the House, they hold the Senate and the White House. But the American people are being told that nothing can be done and they just need to go out and vote. And so we're here today to talk about the needs of people, right? We need to see our government work for us if we hope to restore faith in our participatory democracy and stave off a far-right takeover of this country. In just a bit, we're going to have Representative Pramila Jayapal join us to discuss actions Democrats can take right now to fight for our rights, including abortion rights, and including also the push to expand the Supreme Court. As chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, I can never say that right, Representative Jayapal will lay out key priorities the party could deliver in the near term, like drug price negotiation, ending fossil fuel subsidies, childcare, and more. I think I just saw a headline that said Schumer's ready to revive reconciliation, so we'll see what we can do there. We'll also be speaking with David Zuckerman about his run for Lieutenant Governor of Vermont and the work that he's done as a progressive independent voice along Bernie Sanders in the state of Vermont. And then we're gonna go a little bit further south to Maryland and talk with State House Delegate Sheila Ruth and Montgomery County Executive Marc Elrich. And they're gonna dig in a little bit into their campaigns and what they're running for in Maryland. As I mentioned, right, Democratic voters are growing increasingly frustrated by inaction and obstruction by corporate Democrats, showing exactly why growing the progressive movement is so important. We're dropping a link in the chat right now to a story from The Hill, which has some quotes from our political director, Aaron Chappell, who I'm sure you've seen on some of these calls before. Bernie founded Our Revolution nearly 6 years ago with a mission to empower working people, beat back corporate domination, and advance our democracy. And today, Our Revolution is the largest grassroots-funded progressive political action organization in America, and we're excited to see so many of our members joining us on this call today. The folks on Zoom, the folks on the phones, the folks on social media. Thanks for being here with us today. We really appreciate all of you for being here. We hope that folks that are on social media or on Broadnet through the town hall service, if you want a more interactive experience, switch over to Zoom. We're dropping the link in the chat right now, and you can have a little bit of more of an interactive experience here with us tonight. As I mentioned, we're working to defend our democracy, and part of our mission here at Our Revolution is also to transform the Democratic Party into a more progressive party. And our leaders are working hard inside the party to make it more democratic and more responsive to the grassroots. As we've seen in Texas, as we've seen in other places, right-wing and corporate money is flooding into Democratic primaries, and there are currently no rules within the Democratic Party to address that, right? Big meetings are underway right now to determine party rules, things like, superdelegates, things that we've eliminated in the past are coming back, and we need you to weigh in. So we're dropping a survey right now in the chat for you guys to let us know what you think the Democratic Party should be addressing. Issues like superdelegates on the first ballot, or like I mentioned, right, corporate money flooding into Democratic primaries. So click on the link and let us know what you think. What do we need to do to change the Democratic Party? And obviously, we're not just working inside the party, right? We're also working on the outside, ramping up our fight for fast food worker justice to pass in California Assembly Bill 257. That's the Fast Recovery Act that will give workers a real seat at the table. On our last call, we were joined by worker activists like Mariah Foster of Burger King in Sacramento and Ingrid Vilorio of Jack in the Box in the Castro Valley in California. And they were here urging our members, you guys, to demand that their state senators pass this bill. So especially if you're in California, you can sign on to that letter in solidarity with the workers demanding democratic power at the workplace. And that link is being dropped in the chat right now. And so this brings us to our first guest this evening. I'm really excited to kick off this organizing call tonight and welcome our first guest for the evening. This is U.S. Representative Pramila Jayapal, who we're proud to endorse for re-election to Washington's 7th Congressional District. Representative Jayapal also serves as the chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and she's here to organize with all of us tonight as we work to build progressive power and combat right-wing attacks on our rights. So Representative Jayapal, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Talk to us a little bit about this very heavy moment we're in. I mentioned it at the beginning of the call, right? We're seeing, police brutality, a rogue Supreme Court, mass shootings. So many people are struggling financially. The climate is breaking down. And what can progressives do, and what are we prepared to do to meet this moment?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Paco, and hi, everybody at Our Rev. I'm so happy to be with you. My favorite group of people here fighting to put us on the path to justice. So very proud also to chair the Congressional Progressive Caucus, as Paco mentioned. We've got 100 members now. And I think you saw that this is the first time that we have actually in this session been leveraging power, and we've obviously got more to do. And I want to talk about some of that work we're doing to build the progressive caucus on the inside and to really elect progressive champions. But in response to your question about what we can do right now, and the attacks we're seeing on so many fronts, and we just can't minimize how despairing we sometimes feel, how desperate it sometimes feels. But here's what you and I know, Paco, as organizers for a long time, is that our strength comes in times of crisis. And so this moment is a moment for us to organize, because we've seen very clearly what the Republican plan is for the country. They want a national ban on abortion. They want to make sure the wealthiest people and corporations in our country continue to profiteer off the pain of regular working folks. They want to make sure we don't get a minimum wage passed. They want to do everything they can to help oil companies and drug companies not to take on the climate. And so it's a very clear agenda that they've laid out. What we are doing in Congress is right now with the Supreme Court, the House, we're coming back into the House session tomorrow. We will pass again. Please don't forget that the House already passed the Women's Health Protection Act. We already said we have the majority we need to codify Roe v. Wade. But the problem, of course, is in the Senate. And we do not have, because of the filibuster, we do not have 60 votes that we need. And by the way, even if we didn't have the filibuster, we need 51 pro-choice Democrats, 51 pro-choice Democrats who are willing to override the filibuster completely, or at least do a carve out for things like voting rights, for things like codifying Roe. And so that is a really important piece that we need to focus on. But in the House, we need to show people that we are fighting for them. And we will again pass the Women's Health Protection Act. We will also pass other bills that address abortion as we go along. I've just introduced a bill, Paco, with Mike Thompson to codify the right to access to contraceptives, because we know that the Supreme Court is going after that next. And we want to make sure that that is codified. So those are some of the things you'll see happen in the House. At the same time, we are pushing the administration on a whole slate of executive actions that include some that are specifically around abortion. Some the president announced last week, and we think that's fantastic. There's a few more that we are looking at that we hope to be able to have the White House roll out in the near future. Now, it is true that we need to get rid of the filibuster. And I just want to focus on this for a second, because I think it's easy to think we're losing, Paco, but we're not. We have to recognize that our agenda, our populist agenda, our populist progressive agenda is actually winning across the country. The problem is we have a structural situation where the filibuster is giving power to 40 senators that represent a minority of the population, and is allowing the filibuster to be used as it was with the Southern segregationists and stopping all progress. So we need to eliminate the filibuster. And it's just important to remember that, because actually Democrats have not had a filibuster-proof majority since 2009. And even then, Democrats had the Senate for 60 votes in the Senate only for a period of about 9 months. It was right when Obama was president. We had Democratic control of the House. Al Franken was in a contested election, won the election. And for 9 months, we had 60 votes in the Senate. But actually, we have not had the votes necessary to pass and codify some of these things other than that very small period of time. And so, again, I say that because the structural problem with the filibuster and the Senate being broken because of the filibuster has created this vacuum where now a radical extremist Republican-controlled Supreme Court is stepping into the vacuum of inaction from Congress and legislating on all of these things, from Roe to collective, taking away collective bargaining rights, to EPA, all kinds of things around the environment. So that is an important structural piece that we have to fix. We also need to expand the Supreme Court, the number of justices on the Supreme Court. That's firmly my belief. That's why I'm signed on to Mondaire Jones and Hank Johnson's bill around expanding the Supreme Court, because this is another institution that is broken. And so we are going to continue to push those pieces of legislation. Separately, you mentioned reconciliation, and you know that the Progressive Caucus held the line over and over again on Build Back Better.
Yeah, we were with you the whole time. That's right.
Thank you. We so appreciate that. 99.9% of Democrats in the House and the Senate agreed with us, but we didn't have that last one that we needed. So we're back to the drawing board. I feel good that we can get something on prescription drug pricing. We can get something on a significant investment into climate so that we can transition to a green energy economy. Not everything that you and I probably would want, but significant enough to really make a difference, and that we can get something on taxes for the wealthiest. Now, we're also trying to get some healthcare in there. You know, I'm the lead with Bernie on Medicare for All. We were trying to get dental, vision, and hearing and a few other things in there. That's probably not going to be in there. But as soon as we get one or two more Democrats in the Senate who are actually going to carry out the agenda of the president and of the majority of our party across the country, we can get that passed. And I think that's how we need to think about it.
Yeah, no, that's right. And look, I mean, the issues that you mentioned, right? Pharmaceutical prices, ending fossil fuel subsidies, and a broader sort of environmental things. I read a headline that Schumer's ready to revive reconciliation in the Senate, and that's great. And we'll be behind you guys on pushing again, like we were the first time around earlier this year. Now, pivoting a little bit towards more sort of straightforward.
One more thing, Paco, I forgot to mention, we're going to get student debt cancellation done. We're pushing for a higher amount. We hope that'll happen in August, before the August 31st moratorium ends, and raising the overtime threshold for workers. That would give a pay raise to 30 million workers across the country. So two other big executive actions that we think the president can and should and hopefully will take in the upcoming month.
Yeah, we hope so. And you talked about August a little bit, and we're basically halfway, right? A little bit, maybe a little bit over the halfway point of midterm primary election season, right? And our revolution has been working really hard to elect more progressive champions to Congress. 7 new likely CPC members so far, folks like Summer Lee and Jasmine Crockett and Greg Kassar, and there are others, right? And we're fully committed to this inside-outside strategy that you referred to earlier. And we're both pushing for our policy priorities. What would it mean for the CPC to have a larger base? And what would that mean as well within the sort of larger Democratic caucus, right? If the CPC became sort of, it's already one of, if not the largest caucuses within the Democratic caucus, right? But if it grew more, what would that mean?
We just have more ability to leverage our votes. And we're also, the people that we are investing in, that you are investing in, these are all people who are not only progressive champions, but many of them are progressive organizers. And so that is also important because, as you know, I ran because I thought we needed more organizing on the inside. And it takes a lot to get everybody on board. And we passed a whole set of rules reforms in the CPC that at least brought forward the idea of voting as a block. So the bigger the block, the more power we have. The stronger the progressive, the more certain we are that we're not going to have people chipped away if they suddenly start getting calls from leadership to vote for something when we've said we're not going to vote for it. So these are all things that are really important to building the progressive base. And we are about 40% of the Democratic caucus, but I anticipate that we will be bigger than that next year. And I want to say that the CPC PAC, which I co-chair with Marc Pocan and Jamie Raskin, we have put a lot of effort over the last couple of years in building the CPC PAC. So this year, when I first came in 2017, the CPC PAC was only investing about $300,000 a cycle into electing progressive candidates. Now we're up over 4 million, and it means we could put a massive independent expenditure into Summer Lee's election to help her win. We could put a massive investment into Delia Ramirez's race in Illinois to help her win and fight back on the big money. I should also mention that as PAC co-chairs, we sent a letter to the DNC, the DCCC, and everybody saying, get this big money out of politics. Stop with these independent expenditures coming from single billionaires, crypto billionaires, or issue-focused donors who care only about one specific issue. So we're also working on that front. And we're really excited. In fact, I'm going to Texas Next weekend, I'm going to be speaking to the Travis County Democrats and rallying people there because we've got Greg Casar, as you mentioned. We've also got Michelle Vallejo in Texas, who is running on a progressive platform on Medicare for All and many other issues. And so we've got a whole slate of candidates across the country. And once again, we are destroying the myth that progressives can't win in swing districts, because these progressive policies are popular. Jamie McLeod Skinner in Oregon is running on a progressive slate. And Andrea Salinas, same thing. We've got Maxwell Frost in Florida. We've got a whole bunch of people who are running on really progressive ideas, many in very tough districts. And I believe they will win because they're about making life better for the people, not for the billionaires.
That's right, and we're looking forward to having some of the folks you mentioned on our calls here in the coming weeks. Representative Jayapal, so appreciate you joining us today. I know you've got lots of stuff going on, and we're going back in session tomorrow. So really appreciate you coming on. You know, you and I met when you were organizing in the immigrant community in Washington State, and I was working for Frank Sherry at America's Voice. So, you know, I've known you for a long time and have nothing but admiration, and looking forward to continuing to work with you on getting some of this stuff passed in this reconciliation package.
Thank you so much, Paco. And thank you, everybody. Let's get to work and we can make it happen. The path is this close to us. We just have to keep it up. And we got to remember, they want us to get despairing and discouraged. We don't let that happen. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.
You too. Thank you, Representative Jayapal. And you heard it from Pramila Jayapal. You know, we have a shot at electing more progressives to Congress. We mentioned a bunch of names. Some of them are already pretty close to being in. Others still have a fight on their hands. So if you want to keep an ally like Jayapal and get more allies like Jayapal into Congress, make sure you sign up for our phone banking force. You'll be able to reach voters one-on-one to make sure they vote for our endorsed candidates like Representative Jayapal and others, and you'll have a chance to get trained if you feel intimidated. These calls are not difficult. You're talking to like-minded folks and you're activating them to jump on. So sign on with the link that's getting dropped in the chat. And we look forward to seeing you on one of our phone banks soon. So I'm super excited to bring on our next guest, who I've hosted on our Evolution calls before, and would love to announce our endorsement of David Zuckerman for Lieutenant Governor of Vermont. David is an organic regenerative farmer. He's a father and a small business owner living in Heinsberg. And he's been a long-serving independent voice in the state. And we know another independent voice that came out of the state of Vermont, and that's our founder, Bernie Sanders. As Lieutenant Governor and during his time in the Vermont House and Senate, David has spent decades fighting for economic, environmental, and social justice. In office, he's led on marriage equality, on cannabis reform, on raising wages, on renewable energy and water quality, on universal health care, and so much more. So David, welcome back to our call tonight. I hope you're doing well, and would love to hear a little bit about your run for Lieutenant Governor in Vermont and some of the work that you want to do when you get in office.
Well, thank you, Paco. It is a joy to be here again. It's great to see you again. I really appreciate being with you all and all the volunteers and others on the call who are here weekly or monthly in and out, fighting for what we all care about. I will tell you that in Vermont, we are certainly luckier than a lot of places with respect to the balance of power in our state. We're going forwards. We have a ballot initiative this fall, Proposition 5, to enshrine women's reproductive liberty in our Constitution. So I want to offer a ray of light in this dark, dark time. I will say that in Vermont as well, though, I am hearing every day really the struggles, the urgency, the frustrations. When we think about it, the fundamental economic struggles with inflation, price of food, price of gas, price of housing. We've seen Airbnbs and Verbos and other, short-term rentals take away a lot of rental housing. that used to be available to people who couldn't afford to buy. We're seeing housing prices go through the roof because Vermont's a hot spot right now between moving north to avoid climate heat issues from the south, moving to Vermont because we actually handled COVID pretty well, moving to Vermont because we have Bernie and Ben and Jerry's. Honestly, it's hard for a lot of people here who are making 10, 12 bucks an hour to make a living. And so I'm excited to get back in. I used to be lieutenant governor. I want to get back in. I ran for governor 2 years ago and ill-fated timing because of COVID, but want to get back in to keep fighting for these fundamental issues. The climate crisis, as you said, I'm an organic farmer. I've been doing organic farming and soil building with cover crops, regenerative agriculture for a couple of decades now, while serving in the legislature for 18 years and as lieutenant governor for 4, as a member of actually the most established third party in the country, the Progressive Party. And I know a lot of folks both want to see change within the Democratic Party, as I do, and see us have a voting system and electoral changes that allow for more voices in the system, from public financing to real systemic change to ranked choice voting and so forth. So we're talking about those things in Vermont, and it's resonating. When I'm going around the state, people are still really excited and fighting for people like me and others who are fighting these battles against the incrementalism of many well-intentioned Democrats in Vermont, but they're still doing small steps when right now the urgency of our time just demands bigger steps towards progress for working people, our climate, and racial justice.
Yeah, like most of the people on the call currently, and there's about a little bit over 3,000 people on the call right now through our BroadNet teletown hall services. I didn't necessarily know the full history of Vermont and didn't realize that it used to be a pretty red state, right? Until folks like you and Bernie started putting in the work, talking to folks, about how you can can you talk to us a little bit about how we can reach, rural and working class voters to join sort of our collective project for change?
Absolutely. I mean, Bernie inspired me when I was a student in 92 at UVM. And it was because of a number of reasons. One, he said exactly what he believed. So he didn't put his finger to the wind and say mushy words to try to not piss anybody off. And I think a lot of the folks who sometimes are on the other side of some of the issues we are fighting for, they actually agree with us, but they're tired of sort of mealy-mouthed politicians. A lot of folks on the right, as you know, they just hammer home what they believe. They say it. They don't want sort of spineless politicians. Secondly, I'll say that when I was growing up, I grew up in really rural Virginia, an area that had 85% Trump voters. And I know a lot of those folks. And when I go around Vermont to some of the rural areas, they're still out there. And a lot of times it's working class, struggling people who used to be able to come out of high school and get a manufacturing job at a door plant, a Levi's factory, a tanning facility. These are the examples I have from Virginia, but those are all closed. They're all gone. Reaganomics and trickle down and sort of international exploitation of low-wage work overseas has made it so decent people can't put food on the table, can't put a roof over their heads. And I think if we talk to folks about those economic bread and butter issues and what we can do for them, whether it's universal health care, raise the minimum wage, investing in our rural communities, then we will start to make progress with folks who are currently seeming impossible to reach. And that's not to say shying away, we shouldn't shy away from our battles for the social justice issues, whether it's abortion, trans rights and fair education, whether it's, stopping bullying in schools, whether it's improper policing and police brutality of communities of color. We need to make sure everyone feels safe walking down the street or going to school or being a member of their community. But if we deal with economic and bread and butter issues, that brings some of those folks in who right now are so angry because their view of the world, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, work hard, you'll get ahead, doesn't exist anymore. And if they believe that old spiel, then the only place to put the blame is either on themselves for failing or on government for creating the system that is having them fail. And the Republicans are doing a much, much better job at blaming government so that folks can put blame somewhere because no one wants to blame themselves. And so we have to address these economic inequities. And that's what Bernie did so well. And he did it in Vermont and really reached people across the spectrum with that kind of conversation and policy.
Yeah. And so my last question for you is, what can progressives do with the power of statewide offices, right?
Yeah.
And why is it important for us as progressives to start building, from the bottom up, so to speak, right?
Well,
when it comes to electoral power.
That's right. I mean, I didn't start as lieutenant governor. I started as a local representative in a district of 4,000 people per person. It was a 2-seat district, but you door knock on every door. You get elected at those levels, you get experience with talking about the issues with people, hearing from people at their doors what the real issues are, and then working to solve them. And as you do that fight, you gain a reputation that lets you, as I did, win the Senate seat, win lieutenant governor's office, hopefully again this time around, and eventually get into seats like Senator Pramila Jayapal and Bernie and others who are taking these issues to the next level. Governor's seats are hugely important because you make huge policy decisions, huge implementation decisions in those governor's seats. And so really it's bottom up. Every seat is important. Folks who are in higher office can help folks in the local offices to learn from experience, and people in higher office can learn from the folks on the front lines at the local level what's really going on in living rooms and church basements and coffee shops. So we need it at all levels. And I can't stress, look at school boards across the country right now. Look at the right wing bull, about CRT in schools. Well, if we're not fighting back for those school boards so that we can teach true history that is diverse and not just white man history, if we don't win those back, then our long-term prospects are dim. We have to get back to recognizing how important local office is as well as these statewide. So I really appreciate the time you're giving me. I know my time, I think, is up shortly. I just want to throw out there, Zuckerman, FORVT.com. I do have a party-backed opponent who is raising more money. The Democrats have always accepted me when I win, but they've never really been thrilled that I win. It's kind of like Bernie. And I could use folks' help right now. We got about a month left. Voting's in progress, and my opponent's on TV a lot more than me. So thank you for your help. Thank you for the calls all over the country. And thank you for the work RREV does. I really appreciate it, Paco.
Well, thank you, David. And all right, folks, you heard it from him. He's on the ballot in Vermont. I think the election is August 9th. Make
Correct.
sure to make the plan to vote early, to vote by mail if necessary, to call your friends in Vermont and get them out to vote as well. David's a phenomenal leader, and we need to keep him in office and elect more folks like him all over the country, right? So you can sign up in the link in the chat that's getting dropped right now to get active with our revolution and help us do voter outreach all over the country. This is how we, as a movement, can circumvent the big money ads and other things that David just mentioned, and talk to our folks directly about the issues that matter to them and about the candidates that can address those issues. Thank you to all the folks that are signing up now. I can see a lot of people doing that on the back end, so that's great to see. And let's also show some love to our phone bankers that have been doing so much. You can use your emojis on Zoom or on Facebook and Twitter and give them some love, because they've been working real hard to get some of these folks elected. So thank you to David. And now we're going to go to our third guest. We're going a little bit further south in Vermont now, and I'm happy to welcome Delegate Sheila Ruth. Our revolution is backing Sheila for re-election to the Maryland House of Delegates in District 44B. She's been a leader of our revolution, Baltimore County, for a while, and in office, Sheila has led the charge in the state for climate action, for universal health care, for juvenile justice reform, for more help to folks with disabilities, for reproductive rights, and so much more. She works hard and is on the important Environment and Transit Committee to ensure that all Marylanders see the environment, health, and economic benefits of a well-planned transportation system. And so Maryland mail-in ballots are out now, and early voting runs from July 7th to July 14th, and election day is on July 19th. So let's welcome Sheila. It's great to see you, Sheila. I hope you're doing well. Can you talk to us a little bit about your race and why you want to continue your work in the Maryland House of Delegates?
Sure. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be on here and speak to everybody. You know, our revolution is really important to me. Excuse my cat, he wants attention. You know, I've been a member and participating in our revolution since the very beginning. So it's a real honor to be on here with my family, my Our Revolution family. So, you know, 2 years ago, I was appointed to the House of Delegates to fill a vacancy, and so now I'm running for a full term. My district has 2 delegate seats in it. I'm the only incumbent running, but there are 5 other people besides me running. I'm working with one of those people, Alethea McCaskill, who is SEIU 500 union member, and she's really awesome. But besides the 2 of us, there are 4 other people running, and you know, because I've only been an incumbent for 2 years, you know, I don't have the wide name recognition that I would have had with a longer term. And so, you know, it's really important to be able to get my name out. And, you know, when people hear my message, it really resonates, but I have to get that message out. And, you know, I've been doing some really important work in the House of Delegates on transportation equity, which I think we might talk about in a little bit. Also really championing state-based universal health care. I'm, you know, a big fan of the work that Representative Jayapal is doing, you know, to try to enact Medicare for all. But while we work on it at the federal level, there's no reason that we can't, you know, do state-by-state universal health care as well. And it can be done in Maryland. Closing the school-to-prison pipeline, with, you know, ensuring we have a law that students can be charged with a crime for disrupting school activities. So students are charged for things like storming out of class or refusing to sit down. So I am, you know, really trying to get that law amended as well. Also allowing the Attorney General to sue the fossil fuel companies for the damage that they've caused, you know, in the climate crisis. The taxpayers shouldn't be on the hook for that damage that they fraudulently caused. And, you know, many other things, better regulating pesticides. And so, but beyond my work, it's about building progressive power, as every other person here has spoken about tonight. And as we constantly talk about, one person can't do it alone. So we need one of the more progressive members of the House of Delegates. And so we need progressives we need more progressives. And so it's really important for me to return to continue to be part of that block of progressives, as Representative Jayapal talked about at the federal level. We need that at the state level also. And we've seen, you know, with these Supreme Court decisions coming down, has shown how important state legislatures are in terms of protecting and expanding our rights. And so, you know, all of those reasons are really important, why I want to return and continue the work.
So, Sheila, tell us a little bit about your focus on the intersection of transportation and the environment, and how that can make a real difference in people's lives.
Yeah, thank you so much. And, you know, transit is really super important. And Maryland is not a great state for transit. We have a lot of highways. You know, we have some transit, the Marc trains, but even those have been cut back. Baltimore has a few transit lines, but it's not a lot. Originally, we were supposed to have a transit system that was planned at the same time that Washington, D.C.'s was, but the Washington, D.C. system got off the ground, and Maryland's never really was fully developed. We were supposed to have an east-west transit corridor called the Red Line. And then 7 years ago, our Governor Hogan, canceled that red line with no community input, no data, no studies to show, you know, whether canceling it would have been, he called it a boondoggle, but there was no data to show that it was a boondoggle. And that caused a lot of harm to Baltimore, canceling that transit system. And, you know, so transit is really important for economic reasons. It helps people get to jobs. And we have people in Maryland and in Baltimore who spend 2 to 3 hours commuting. It's also important economically for economic development. It attracts transit-oriented development, but it's also important environmentally to help reduce our dependence on cars. And, there's also a huge equity impact to transit, both economic and environmental. Due to the history of race-based transit and land use policies, things like redlining, where, that have caused segregation in Baltimore and in other cities as well. And so, everyone in Maryland should have the benefits of a well-planned transportation system. And I say transportation, not just transit, because there are equity impacts to highways, for example, which are often built through Black communities, dividing Black communities, spewing pollution into Black communities and low-income communities as well. And so I have championed transportation equity in the Maryland House of Delegates and the General Assembly. That bill did pass and unfortunately was vetoed by the governor. So I will be reintroducing it if I'm reelected. We can't, because it'll be a new legislature next year, we can't override vetoes, but it's a really super important issue to make sure everyone has the environmental and economic benefits of a well-planned transportation system. I think you're muted. Paco, I think you're muted.
Paco, you're muted.
Sorry, my dogs were barking and I decided to not let you guys hear that. So, Sheila, what can folks do to help you in your race and more broadly in your work in Maryland?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Just really quick, I want to address a question that I saw coming up in the chat about transportation for seniors and persons with disabilities. That was absolutely a part of my bill, both seniors and persons with disabilities, and that's very important. We do have a mobility system for persons with disabilities that's had a lot of problems in Maryland as well that need to be addressed. In terms of my race, I just came to you right from the polls. We're in the middle of early voting, and what we're finding is that most people we're having a lot of mail-in voting. That the traditional thing of standing at polls, talking to people as they come in, it helps, but it's not as effective as it has been in the past because people are just not coming to the polls. There are a large percentage of people that are mailing in voting. So, this is really the last week and of the last week of the election. So it's really hugely important to do everything we can to get my name out. So if you are local, I would appreciate your help for GOTV voting, help at the polls, anything like that. Definitely can still use donations to help me, with tools to get the word out, and so the best thing you can do there is to go to SheilaRuth.com. It's SheilaRuth.com. I'll post that in the chat. Our revolution is also doing some phone banking and definitely could use your help with that. If you would volunteer, it would be really great. Just generally support our revolution. I've been an Our Revolution member, like I said, since the beginning, and they do really good work. And it's also important to keep that up after the election. The election is only the first step. And, we need, Maryland is a Democratic state, but not all of those Democrats are progressive. And so we definitely need to continue the pressure in order for me and other progressives to be able to enact our policies. We need people to be involved, to testify, to send testimony, to write your legislators, and really to push on those bills as well.
Well, thank you very much, Sheila. And for folks in Baltimore County, Maryland, and all over the state, actually, you can vote for Sheila in Baltimore County, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. through Thursday, this Thursday, and then Election Day is July 19th. And then we're also dropping a link in the chat once more for you guys to sign up for a phone banking shift to reach out to voters in Sheila's district. So thank you so much for joining us, Sheila. Good luck with your race. We're doing what we can to help out here, and hopefully we'll see you in the House of Delegates again soon.
Thank you.
All right. And so we have a fourth guest potentially, but I haven't seen him yet. So I don't know if he's arrived. What I can do is just go through some of the stuff we've talked about, some of our upcoming events, in hopes that we can get our next guest on. So on our upcoming events, we've got obviously a membership ask to make for you guys. So if we could scroll there, thank you. After seeing some of the work we've been doing, we hope you'll sign up and become an official Our Revolution member today. This is how we shift power in favor of the working class and change our politics, change our country, and change the lives of our folks for the better. But we need your help to do it. So that link is getting dropped in the Zoom chat and the social media chat and everywhere else. And if you're on the phones, you can press *3 and an operator will help you sign up. I also wanted to announce some big news. Our Revolution is joined with Whole Washington, that's Washington State, to fight for ballot initiative 1471 that would create the first ever nonprofit statewide universal healthcare system in our country. We need about 400,000 signatures to put universal healthcare on the ballot in Washington State. So definitely, if you're interested, click the link below that we're dropping into the chat and add your name in support of the Washington Health Trust. A successful state program can prove that single payer bills are viable and that can work at the federal level as well. So that can help us, treat people and potentially even save lives. So that link is getting dropped in the chat now. We have an Andy Levin phone bank. Andy Levin's one of our champions in Michigan. He got put in a very awkward position where he's running against another incumbent, right? Because they cut down and put them into the same district. And so we need to keep Andy in Congress. The link is getting dropped in the chat now, so you can help us keep him in. He's a champion for worker rights, for environmental rights, for all the things we hold dear. So you can sign up to help us a phone bank for Andy and call folks in Michigan there. And we also have a couple of phone banks in New York for Brittany Ramos de Barros and Melanie Dorigo. They're both running for Congress in New York. We'd love to have them in. So Brittany's link is getting dropped in now, and then Melanie's will be following shortly after. I mentioned at the top of our call, right, our revolution leaders are working hard inside the party to make sure we change it for the better. And if you're interested in helping us do that, you can start by telling us what you think the Democratic Party needs to change first. Is it getting rid of big money in our primaries? Is it getting rid of superdelegates on the first ballot? Is it being more transparent on the way they're spending their money? All of those things are being decided right now at the Rules Committee within the Democratic National Committee. And we're pushing hard to make all of those real. So let us know in the survey which ones you think are the ones that we need to take care of first. And then before we close, I think I can bring on our guest now. I'm looking for Marc Elrich, if he's on.
Hang on 1 second, please.
All right, thank you. He will be on shortly. So let me change the name here so there's no confusion. And so we're hoping to have Marc Elrich here join us in a minute or two. So again, the party work is super important. It's part of our pillars. So I see Marc Elrich. He's joined us. Hey, Marc, how are you?
Hey, I'm okay. I'm up here at a fundraising event.
Good. Well, we won't take too much of your time. Just thanks so much for being here tonight. Your election day is a week from tomorrow, I believe, right? July 19th.
Yes, it is.
So please tell our folks about yourself and your race for county executive in Montgomery County.
So I'm running, this is running for my second term. I'm running against the same guy I beat by 77 votes 4 years ago. He spent $10 million then, and I think he's going to outdo himself this time. And so I'm a publicly financed candidate, as you would expect. And so when you're publicly financed and you're running against millionaires, it becomes a bit more challenging. But I think we have a good grassroots base. And I feel like people have a lot of trust because of the way we manage COVID here.
That's great. And so, you won by 77 votes. That's not a lot, right? So we're hoping our folks can turn out and help you. Also want to just announce, and I forgot to do that at the top, that we're super proud to endorse you for your re-election run. So very excited to be working on that and helping get you there. And so tell us a little bit about, it's so important that progressives like yourself serve in state, local, and county positions like, county executive. How do we build power in our movement, both inside government, but also outside and up and down the ballot?
So, I think my own, longer story is I spent years being involved as a community activist. Years before I did anything political, I worked on issues that people in my communities were interested in. I was a tenant when I moved to Tacoma Park in about 1980. I was came in and was doing tenant organizing. I worked on tenant issues. I got elected to the city council. I continue to work on tenant issues and local issues. And I think that, the best way to become effective is for people to see you working on issues that matter to them every day. It's great to have national positions on things that, at my level, I'm never going to be able to do anything about. But working for communities, I've worked with communities that were trying to prevent schools from being closed and communities that were trying to, make sure they didn't get displaced. I've worked with tenants to help them buy buildings. I mean, there aren't a lot of votes in that, when you're doing it, but you build, relationships and people can look at what you've done and say, this person's actually worked for us. And I've always liked doing it, whether or not I was running for office. I always felt like, the most important thing one does with their life is try to be purposeful and make a difference.
So just going quickly, our last question, right? Going back to your second term, what are going to be some of your priorities when you get back in office?
So we've made really big progress on climate change in terms of having a plan and beginning to implement it. So my goal is to be able to accelerate the implementation of what we are doing. I'm going to push for rent stabilization in Montgomery County. And we have legislation that requires some affordable housing, but it's basically we get 12.5% of a development for people earning between $60,000 and $75,000. We don't do anything for people who earn less. And frankly, there's a big gap between $75,000 in income and where you can actually afford to rent an apartment in Montgomery County. So we need to expand the affordability of who we help. We also need to increase the percentage of developments. If we do 15%, we are never going to solve the affordable housing problem in the county. I think we're going to have to start talking about 30 or 35% of the development has to serve a broader range of incomes. So I want to prioritize that, and that's going to take some work because you really need you need to have the opportunity for people to be able to find, housing in the county, and you have to protect what you have. We want to do no net loss policy, that if a developer redevelops a small apartment building, they have to replace all the units that they displace with affordable units and provide additional affordable units so that we can actually accommodate growth. That's going to be a really hard agenda to get through, but I think we have to start talking about it because the way Montgomery County is going, we're going to lose all of the affordable housing in the county. We have an example across the river. I think it was Arlington lost almost all their affordable housing units in the space of 15 years. And we can't afford to let that happen here.
Well, thank you so much, Marc, for joining us tonight. We'll let you get back to your event. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us here today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being able to be here.
No, thank you so much for joining us. And, for folks that are here in the Zoom or on the phone or listening on social media, we have a phone bank from Marc Elrich. So we're dropping the link in the chat now so you guys can sign up. Let's make sure we keep him in his important position as county executive in Montgomery County, Maryland, so he can continue doing the work that he just talked about now. So you can sign up in the link in the chat. It's getting dropped now. And thank you again, Marc. And we hope to see you back in office very, very soon.
Thank you very much. Hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Okay. All right, so we kind of flipped things around a little bit here, but we are now at the end of our call. So thank you very much to everyone who joined tonight, to all our phone bankers, to the folks that signed up to be phone bankers. We really appreciate you. We couldn't do any of the work that we do without you guys. So as we always do on our calls, feel free to unmute yourselves and join me in our powerful chant. When we organize,
We win.
when we organize,
We win.
Win.
when we organize.
We
We
win.
win.
All right, good night, everybody. Thank you.
Recordings